I need to tell you about a photograph that shouldn't exist. It's dated 1910, taken somewhere in what we're told was the American Southwest. And it shows a building, and ours, not a ruin, a building, 3 stories, ornate stonework, classical columns, the kind of architectural detail that takes years to execute. And it's buried, not partially covered, not damaged by time, buried to the second floor in sand. The windows on what should be the ground level are completely submerged. The entrance is gone. And here's what makes this photograph impossible. According to every official record, that region had been continuously inhabited, continuously documented, continuously mapped since the 1840s. So when did a 3-story building get buried under 20 feet of sand? And more importantly, why is there no record of it happening? The standard explanation, when you can find anyone willing to offer one, involves gradual accumulation. Wind patterns, desert migration, natural processes over decades. Except the photograph shows something else entirely. The sand isn't weathered, it's not settled. It looks recent, almost fluid, like it arrived suddenly and simply stopped. And this isn't the only photograph. Once you start looking, once you know what you're seeing, they're everywhere. Buildings in California, structures in Nevada, entire blocks in parts of Arizona, all showing the same impossible pattern. Architecture buried to the upper floors in sand that has no business being there. I started pulling these images thinking I'd find a simple answer. Flash flooding, maybe. Unusual weather events. Something localized and explainable. What I found instead was a pattern that stretches across continents and refuses every conventional explanation I can construct. Let me show you what I mean. There's a series of photographs from San Francisco taken between 1865 and 1880 that show entire city blocks being excavated. Not built, excavated. The official story calls this grading, leveling the hills to create buildable land. But look at what they're removing. Uniform sand and sediment, 20, 30, sometimes 40 feet deep, revealing buildings that were already there, already complete. The photographs show workers with shovels and carts removing sand from around structures that clearly predate the excavation. You can see the architecture, the stonework, the design elements that match nothing else being built in that era. And the question nobody seems to ask is simple. How did they get buried in the first place? The official timeline for San Francisco goes like this. 1776, Spanish mission established. 1849, gold rush begins. Population explodes. 1850s and 60s, rapid construction, city expands. Neat, linear, progressive. Except the photographs show something different. They show excavation, not construction. They show recovery, not development. They show a city being unearthed. I found similar documentation in other locations. Photographs from parts of the Midwest showing buildings emerging from sand during railroad construction. Images from the Southwest showing structures that had to be dug out before they could be repurposed. Contemporary accounts buried in local historical society archives that describe the process not as building, but as reclaiming. One engineer's journal from 1867 describes clearing sand from what he calls the old foundations, in a town that, according to official records, was founded in 1855. Old foundations. 12 years old. That's not how people talk about recent construction. And then there's the global pattern. Because this isn't just American. Photographs from parts of North Africa, from Central Asia, from regions of China, all showing the same thing. Classical architecture, sophisticated stonework, entire complexes buried in sand and being systematically excavated in the mid to late 1800s. The explanations vary by location. Desert encroachment here, natural processes there, but the visual evidence is identical. Buildings that look like they were designed by the same architectural tradition, buried under conditions that suggest rapid, catastrophic coverage, and then recovered by populations who seem to have no direct connection to the original builders. I keep coming back to the timing. The 1850s through 1880s, the exact period when we're told these frontier regions were being settled and built for the first time, are also the exact period when the photographic evidence shows massive excavation projects. Not occasional archaeological curiosity, systematic large-scale removal of sand from pre-existing structures, and nobody thought this was strange enough to document thoroughly. No detailed records of what was found, no surveys of what lay beneath, no institutional interest in who built these things, or when or why they ended up buried. The silence around this is almost louder than the evidence itself. You'd think the discovery of sophisticated architecture in regions supposedly uninhabited would generate questions, investigations, academic interest. Instead, what you find in the historical record is casual mentions, brief references, and then nothing. The buildings get repurposed, the excavation continues, and the narrative moves forward as if finding buried cities was just part of the normal development process. But here's what really made me stop. I found a newspaper account from 1876 published in a California regional paper describing work